Hi, friends. Welcome again to another episode of Beyond the Clouds, Edge to Edge Transformation. And this transformation has to be inclusive. It needs to bring in people from all walks of life and all places on earth. And I got to know Sheryl Chamberlain when my wife was active with the Global Women's Leadership Network. And Sheryl has been advocate for equity, for bringing people together for a very long time. Sheryl, tell us about you. How did you become the Sheryl Chamberlain we all know today?
Oh, thank you so much. I'm excited to be here and share my story. And if you think about it, today I work at Palo Alto Networks and I manage our global alliance with IBM. But that's really what I do in my day job. What I do in life is I look at opportunities to make the world more inclusive and also bring forward people that want to advance their careers and be part of an ever-changing world. And how did I get started? You just said it, Global Women's Leadership Network. I was invited to join and participate in that program. And what it was about was bringing women from all over the world that wanted to find ways to make the world better for the communities that they lived in, as opposed to looking at it from a global perspective, but from a community perspective. And when I saw what they were doing, I realized that I could also be a catalyst and help them, but I needed to listen first and act second. And that's what created this global mindset about what we can do together as women leaders with our male counterparts, with allies like you.
That's truly amazing. What I found amazing was most people are eager to talk, and you are eager to listen. The very first time I met, you wanted to know all about us. And that was such an amazing experience. Tell us about GWLN. Most people who started it were in Silicon Valley, but the impact was global as well as in local areas. How did you manage to do that? This was well before the time when people were doing virtual work and work from home. How did you manage to have this global impact?
That is very interesting because I didn't even think about the fact that we didn't have the skills or the capability to create that global impact. But what we did is we reached out to local people in Silicon Valley and asked them if they wanted to sponsor someone from another part of the world. And they built that relationship with the person that was coming in and also found a way to fund the movement here, coming over, staying at hotels, and then also helping them once they went back into community. So it's like you act local, you reach out global, and you maintain that connection. And what does it do? It opens up your heart because now people from other communities are coming here and you get to know what you're eating, how you think. It's almost that social interaction, that networking creates that global impact. And I just want to take us forward. If we think about the COVID time, we weren't able to do that so much. We were more virtually connecting and the relationships didn't get as deep. But we're back to where we were before, where people are traveling, they're interacting. We realize that that social in-person interaction will really make a difference. But I want to take us forward from Global Women's Leadership Network because I did that when I was at EMC. And for EMC, I started their women's program for the West Coast. So my vision there was really to make EMC the center of leadership and innovation through the eyes of women and in partnership with men. And that came from Global Women's Leadership Network. And from there, I started to get involved in a lot of other community organizations and realized that if we look at people's careers, they really start their vision of what they can do when they're in college. So in that case, I got involved with something called HALT Prize. And HALT Prize is a challenge that's put out to every student around the world. Again, the notion that they're going into universities around the world to solve a problem that impacts 10 million people in 5 years. It could be food sustainability, or it could be something around what they want to do specifically in their community. And again, through that program, it was bringing students from all over the world to solve a similar problem and working with them and realizing we're all solving the same thing and that we're not that different. That's the true form of diversity, equity, inclusion, getting different points of view together to solve similar problems.
And one thing I truly appreciated was it was truly inclusive. It wasn't only women. I remember one man from Africa who was digging wells in his country and I think in neighboring countries, and who was also sponsored. And he was an amazing singer, performer who brought his culture with him to the United States, to all of us. Can you describe that a little bit?
Yeah, it's funny that you remember that, but because there was that, again, that social, personal, musical side to him, you remember him. If he didn't open up that side of him, you would remember maybe the project he was working on. But when we share all the wonderful things that we're involved in, it changes. For me now, I have a dog. And so almost in every interview, the dog comes along and people remember me because the dog's in the background. It's again, letting others know more about me, not just from a professional lens, but from a personal point of view.
What I also appreciated was the work that was done in many parts like India with trafficking of women and how retraining them. In India, Smrita Sen Gupta began her journey also from GWLN. Are there other notable examples that transform people's lives?
Yes, I just really want to say this. If you take it all the way back, when you're in college, if you get a chance to be involved in social impact, whether you win a prize or you go on to be a finalist, it's just the notion that you're touching something where you can make a change and you're creating that element of care inside of your life. From there, when you go on to your career and what you're doing to make money in your day job, you take that part of you forward. And then when you work in a company, people see you differently. And I'm just going to take this forward to where I am now at Palo Alto Networks. When I was at EMC and I ran women's leadership, it started with Global Women's Leadership Network, and then I built this community. I worked in partnership with a gentleman named Dan Campbell. And essentially, I reached out to him because he was a very senior leader. And I said, could you be my sponsor for women's leadership? And he goes, well, what do you need? I said, first of all, your money, because I want to have people come in and feed them, but I also want you to come to events and be involved. And from there, he realized, wow, what am I doing? This is fantastic. I have girls, they're going to grow up. You look at all the women you've brought here, they're so incredible. And it became something he did professionally over the next 20 years. So now I'm at Palo Alto Networks, and he just joined us 2 weeks ago. And what did he
Oh,
do? He got on a sales leadership call and he said, I just want to let you know our own Sheryl Chamberlain is here. And together we're going to drive women's leadership together. So you never know when you touch somebody's life, how you will change theirs and how they change others for in many ways, ongoing for years. And how when you come back together and you're more senior, you can do even more than you did before. So again, like these stories, it sounds so simple, but it's very big and it's needed, especially in our world today.
you know what you say, Cheryl, rings so true for us. Our daughter was in high school at that time. And Shona, she was so inspired. She ended up going to Yale and NYU. And now she's working with the Legal Aid Society of New York, working on public interest causes. And I think that inspiration probably goes back to the times at GWLN and other organizations, United Way and United Nations. But it really touched her heart. So thank you for reminding us. In what ways, Cheryl, did it transform your life? You already touched upon a couple of things. And how did it transform your career as well?
Yes, well, first of all, transform my life. I wake up every day wanting to do something more and better, certainly in my day job, but also knowing that I am part of a greater community that can help others. So I'm a different person. My life is integrated, professional and personal. But from a professional point of view, when you show others what you care about, then from a business perspective, you actually bond more deeply. And through that bond, you can drive better business impact and outcomes. I will think about Pat Gelsinger, who's now the CEO of Intel, also was involved in women's leadership with me when I was at EMC. And when we shared stories about the things that we're doing in our worlds, it created a closer connection and relationship. And for me, it helped my career move more succinctly forward because I had that executive sponsorship. When I looked to leave EMC, I went to go work at Capgemini. he sponsored me into that role. So then in the next company I was in, he stayed connected because the relationship at Capgemini was an alliance relationship. So now Capgemini and VMware EMC were all connected. So I just really want to say, from a professional, personal level, if you connect what you believe in, when you drive what you care about, when you bring others forward, when you share all that you are doing and what you care about, it actually helps you progress your career and also allows you to be more successful as well as others.
It's so true. It's such a connected world. I worked for Pat Gelsinger recently at Intel Foundry. All power to him. They got the $8.5 billion grant from the CHIPS Program Office and the CHIPS Act. And amazing, he's driving tremendous change at Intel. And earlier, when you were at VMware or you're working with VMware EMC, my classmate Shaker Iyer was driving a lot of the connectivity with the whole world, bringing alliances together, such a small world. Which reminds me, you folks started going global with GWLN at a time when it was not common. So, have you been able to use the newer and emerging technologies to make the world a closer knit place?
That's a good question. I'm really not leveraging technology so much as I'm leveraging the ability to stay connected through applications like what we're using right now, Zoom. But I'm also using that connected world, so LinkedIn and other programs, to see where are people going. So when I go to another country, I can continue to connect. I post quite a lot. I'm very social. So as I move from place to place or through different communities and trips that I'm taking, I make sure that I connect back in. So I'm going to give you an example. Helene Varnico used to be at EMC. She ran field marketing. She was offered a position to move over to Telia Sonera in Sweden. When she took that job, she was brought in as the chief revenue officer and then quickly was named to the CEO. So I don't know that you have the skill sets to be a CEO that quickly when you haven't been trained for it, but they trusted her and her capability of working and understanding people, and the company needed to progress through her leadership style. So she had that role. She went on to a different role at Microsoft being CEO and stepped away and wrote a book. And her book is really about how we take the lessons that we've learned to impact people's lives going forward. So I was going to the UK. She was doing her book launch. I was invited to the book launch. I met her community. We reconnected. So again, I'm just trying to bring forward, when we share our stories, when we stay connected, when we move into different leadership roles, it's all about the human connection, not necessarily the technology, that brings what we want to bring as humans and people forward.
Very true. We often forget that technology is the means, not an end in itself. So, what was the most interesting or the most challenging project that you have worked on, either in your personal life or in your career?
I would say the most challenging for me, and it's something I had to learn, was working for an American company, which was EMC, and then going to work for Capgemini, which was a French company. So culturally completely different. And you cannot be American when you work for a French company because they're French and they really recognize the value of who they are from a professional level. So I had to learn new skills and learn the art of understanding not only French, but European culture, and then start taking what I bring to those cultures forward to advance the values, the business, and the outcomes that we were building. So it was a little hard at first, but ultimately, I think I'm a better person today than I would have been if I didn't take that challenge. And of course, I didn't know it would be one, but they taught me very quickly. And now they are great colleagues, the people that I worked with at Capgemini, and I will always be that way.
I had many dealings with Capgemini in the
Oh.
last few years. It took me a little while to understand. Sometimes cultures collide, but once we expand our horizons, cultures can come together and bring more richness to the whole experience. Speaking of which, what advice do you have for people? A lot of starry eyed people today, some of them are very anxious with all the changes in the world. What advice do you have first for people who want to work in social change and another in bettering their career in these changing times?
Yes. think the most important thing you can do is remember that you should not look at your life and career as the box that you live in where you work. If all you do is what you do day to day, you will never be part of the world that we care about. So find a way to join some community. For me, I just joined Chief, and Chief is a community of global women leaders in business, and they're all over the world. In fact, I just went to my first Chief session this week where we talked about AI and how AI is affecting us in our work and in the communities. It's been a while since I've gone in person to a program like that. When I was there, I didn't just listen to the panel. I heard what they were saying, and then I brought the rest of us in the audience into the discussion. So again, you might go to that community, but remember, you have a voice too. Don't just listen, participate. So back to the lesson, stay involved, find a community like Chief or something that you care about that you can be involved in, and look at it from two aspects, from a business aspect and what you want to change in the world, because we do care. There is a lot going on out there, and we can't stop being part of that constant view of what we bring to make things better for all of us. If we don't get involved, nothing will ever change. And what I would like to do is make a subgroup of Chief. So like people that want to be chiefs. So pay attention. I'll be starting to take that community to drive more women's events that I'll run out of Palo Alto Networks. And maybe that'll be the topic that I drive there.
All power to you, Chief. I think we need it all, and we need to bring people together like you have done. And if at some point you decide to make it an open, inclusive community, I'll be the first to join.
Okay.
So thanks a lot, Sheryl, for sharing your wisdom and your experiences. And to people listening out there, this is the reason I talk to people from all walks of life, because we all learn together. If you who are listening out there want to participate, please come forward. I want to know your stories. I want to know what are the challenges you and your community are facing, and how can technology help? How can we bring and cultivate an inclusive world and take responsibility for it, rather than passively waiting for our president or our chiefs to take care of it? We have to step forward. Thanks, Sheryl, for really inspiring us to do that and to remind us of our civic responsibility.
Thank you. And thank you for inviting me today. I look forward to seeing more stories from the other women that you interview.